Once upon a time, there's an African village called Umoja. In this village, there was a princess called Nola. The villagers adored her for her bravery and compassion, and she dedicated her life to their well-being. One fateful day, a powerful plague swept through the village, bringing despair and fear. The villagers tried every known remedy, but nothing seemed to work. Prayers and rituals were performed, but the sickness persisted. Nola's father, King Osei, was deeply concerned for his daughter's safety, for she cared so much for the villagers. "Nola, you must stay inside," King Osei warned her one morning. "This plague is dangerous, and I cannot risk losing you." "But father, the people need me," Nola protested. "I cannot stand by while they suffer." Reluctantly, King Osei agreed, but only if she promised to be careful. Nola went about the village, offering comfort and care to the sick, but her heart grew heavier with each passing day as more villagers succumbed to the illness. Unbeknownst to anyone, a mysterious figure had arrived in the village. Apollo, an angel in disguise, observed the suffering from the shadows. He had been sent by God to aid the village in their darkest hour. His presence went unnoticed as he watched over the villagers, waiting for the right moment to intervene. As the days passed, the villagers' hope waned. Every trial to cure the plague had failed. Desperation filled the air. One evening, a young boy named Kofi fell gravely ill. His mother wept beside him, and the villagers gathered, praying for a miracle. It was then that Apollo decided to act. With a silent prayer, he approached Kofi. He laid his hands on the boy, and a soft, warm glow emanated from his touch. The villagers watched in awe as Kofi's breathing steadied and his fever broke. Word of the miraculous healing spread quickly, but Apollo remained in the shadows, his identity a mystery. Then, one day, Nola herself fell ill. The plague had finally reached her. Chief Osei was beside himself with worry. The villagers gathered outside the chief's hut, their beloved princess now one of the afflicted. As night fell, a figure emerged from the shadows and approached the hut. King Osei, hearing the tales of the mysterious healer, was determined to find him. He gathered his trusted advisers and set out to search the village. They asked everyone they met about the healer, describing the miraculous events they had heard. One night, as the village slept, King Osei came across a humble dwelling on the outskirts of the village. Inside, he found Apollo, quietly preparing herbs and medicines. "Are you the healer who has been aiding my people?" King Osei asked, his voice filled with hope and authority. Apollo looked up, his eyes calm and compassionate. "I am," he replied simply. "Please," King Osei pleaded, "my daughter, Princess Nola, has fallen ill. She needs your help." Apollo nodded, sensing the urgency in the king's voice. "Take me to her." As they approached the king's hut, the villagers whispered among themselves, watching the mysterious healer with a mix of awe and curiosity. Inside, Nola lay weak and feverish, her condition worsening by the hour. Apollo entered quietly, his eyes filled with determination and compassion. He knelt beside Nola, his hands glowing with the same warm light that had healed Kofi. Nola looked up weakly, her eyes meeting Apollo's for the first time. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "A friend," Apollo replied softly. "Rest now. You will be well." With a gentle touch, Apollo placed his hands on Nola. The glow intensified, and slowly, her fever subsided. Nola felt a warmth spread through her body, and for the first time in days, she felt a sense of peace. King Osei watched in amazement, realizing that this mysterious healer was no ordinary man. As Nola drifted into a peaceful sleep, the villagers outside cheered, their hope restored. As the sun rose over Umoja, the village buzzed with the news of Princess Nola's miraculous recovery. The villagers were filled with renewed hope, and Apollo's presence was now openly welcomed. Nola, still weak but improving, spent her days regaining her strength, her thoughts often drifting to the mysterious healer. One morning, as Nola sat in the village square, observing the daily activities, Apollo approached her. He carried a basket of herbs and smiled warmly at her. "Good morning, Princess," he said, bowing slightly. "Good morning, Apollo," Nola replied, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you for saving me. I owe you my life." Apollo shook his head gently. "It was not just me. Your strength and faith played a significant role in your recovery." Nola smiled, feeling a connection to Apollo that she couldn't quite understand. "Would you walk with me?" she asked. Together they strolled through the village, talking about the people, the land, and their hopes for the future. Nola found herself drawn to Apollo's wisdom and kindness, and Apollo, though maintaining his divine mission, couldn't help but feel a growing affection for the brave princess. Meanwhile, in the neighboring village of Zuka, lived a prince. Prince Gorgon, who had long been promised Nola's hand in marriage, seethed with jealousy and hatred. He had always harbored a desire for power and dominance, and the news of Nola's recovery and her growing bond with Apollo only fueled his rage. Gorgon had tried many times to win Nola's heart, showering her with gifts and attention, but she had never accepted his advances. Her rejection stung deeply, and now, seeing her with another man, his jealousy turned to a burning hatred. Gorgon decided to see for himself. Disguising himself, he traveled to Umoja and observed from the shadows as Nola and Apollo walked together, their bond evident in their shared laughter and conversation. His blood boiled as he watched Nola's eyes light up when she spoke to Apollo. That evening, as Nola and Apollo returned to the village square, Gorgon stepped out of the shadows, revealing himself. "Nola," he called out, his voice laced with bitterness, "is this how you repay my affections? By consorting with a stranger?" Nola turned, surprised to see Gorgon. "Prince Gorgon, what are you doing here?" "I came to see for myself the rumors of your recovery," Gorgon spat. "And I find you with him." He pointed accusingly at Apollo. Apollo remained calm, stepping forward to stand beside Nola. "I am here to help the village, Prince Gorgon. There is no need for hostility." Gorgon sneered. "You think you can take what is rightfully mine? Nola has been promised to me." Nola stepped forward, her voice firm. "Gorgon, I am not a possession to be claimed. I have never accepted your advances because I do not love you. My heart belongs to my people and to those who show true compassion." Gorgon's eyes glowed with anger and jealousy. "This is not over, Nola. You will regret this." With that, he stormed off, his heart filled with a dark determination. That night, as he brooded in his chamber back in Zuka, a demonic entity appeared before him, feeding on his negative emotions and promising him the power to destroy Apollo and claim Nola for himself. "Join me," the demon whispered, "and I will give you the strength to defeat your enemies." Blinded by his jealousy and desire for power, Gorgon agreed. The demon entered his body, granting him supernatural abilities but also consuming his soul with darkness. Back in Umoja, the village continued to heal under Apollo's guidance. The villagers revered him, and his bond with Nola grew stronger. However, Apollo knew his mission was not complete. The plague had subsided, but the darkness looming over the village was far from gone. One evening, as the village prepared for a feast to celebrate their recovery, Apollo sensed a disturbance. He excused himself from the festivities and walked towards the outskirts of the village. There, in the shadows, he found Prince Gorgon, his eyes glowing with an unholy light. "So, you're the healer," Gorgon sneered. "The one who thinks he can take what is rightfully mine." Apollo stood firm, sensing the demonic presence within Gorgon. "I am here to bring peace and healing. Your hatred will only bring more suffering." Gorgon laughed, a sinister sound that echoed through the night. "You will not stand in my way. Nolla will be mine, and you will be destroyed." With that, Gorgon lunged at Apollo, his newfound strength fueled by the demon. Apollo defended himself, his healing powers clashing with the dark force within Gorgon. The battle was intense, and the villagers, hearing the commotion, rushed to the scene. Nolla arrived just in time to see Apollo and Gorgon locked in a fierce struggle. Her heart ached to see the man who had saved her life fighting for his own. She knew she had to do something. "Stop!" Nolla cried out, stepping between them. "This is madness. Gorgon, you don't have to do this." Gorgon paused, his eyes flickering between darkness and his true self. For a moment, it seemed as if he might listen, but the demon's grip was too strong. He roared and pushed Nolla aside, focusing his attack on Apollo. With a final burst of energy, Apollo repelled Gorgon, sending him staggering back. The demon within Gorgon howled in frustration, retreating temporarily. "This isn't over," Gorgon spat, before disappearing into the night. Apollo, breathing heavily, looked at Nolla with concern. "Are you all right?" Nolla nodded, tears in her eyes. "We need to stop him. He won't give up." Apollo agreed, knowing the battle was far from over. The bond between them grew stronger, forged in the fire of adversity. Together, they would face the darkness and protect Umoja from the unseen forces threatening their peace. One evening, as Apollo and Nolla walked by the river, Nolla looked at Apollo with a mixture of curiosity and affection. "Apollo, you have done so much for our village. Yet, I know so little about you. Where do you come from?" Apollo smiled, gazing at the shimmering water. "My past is not as important as the mission I have here, Nolla. But know this, I am here to protect and heal. That is my purpose." Nolla felt a pang of frustration. She wanted to know more about him, to understand the man who had become so important to her. "You speak in riddles, Apollo, but I trust you." Their moment of peace was interrupted by a loud commotion from the village. They hurried back to find a group of villagers gathered around a small child who had collapsed. The child was burning with fever, and the villagers were frantic. Nolla knelt beside the child, her heart heavy with worry. "We must help him, Apollo." Apollo nodded and placed his hands on the child's forehead. His healing light began to glow, but something was different this time. The light flickered and faded, and the child's condition did not improve. Apollo frowned, his face etched with concern. "There is a darkness here, something blocking my healing." Nolla looked around, her eyes scanning the crowd. "Gorgon," she whispered. "He must be behind this." Determined to find answers, Apollo and Nolla set out to investigate. They visited the elders, seeking their wisdom and guidance. The elders spoke of ancient legends and dark forces, warning them of the dangers that lay ahead. As they delved deeper into their investigation, Apollo and Nolla discovered that Gorgon had been gathering power, drawing strength from the demonic entity within him. He had found a way to weaken Apollo's healing abilities, using dark magic to create a barrier around the village. "We must find a way to break this barrier," Apollo said, his voice resolute. "The lives of the villagers depend on it." Nolla nodded, her determination matching his. "We will find a way, Apollo. Together." Their quest led them to a hidden cave deep in the forest, said to hold the key to breaking the dark magic. Inside, they found ancient symbols and artifacts, remnants of a time when the village had faced similar threats. As they explored the cave, Nolla stumbled upon a scroll containing a powerful incantation. "This might be what we need," she said, showing it to Apollo. Apollo studied the scroll, recognizing the symbols. It's a purification ritual. If performed correctly, it can dispel the dark magic. They returned to the village, gathering the villagers to explain their plan. With the help of the elders, they prepared for the ritual, each person playing a crucial role. The atmosphere was tense, but hope glimmered in their eyes. On the night of the ritual, the villagers gathered in a circle around the village square. Nola stood beside Apollo, holding his hand for support. As the incantation began, Apollo's healing light merged with the power of the ritual, creating a brilliant glow that spread through the village. Gorgon, sensing the threat to his power, arrived with fury in his eyes. "You think you can defeat me with your tricks," he shouted, his voice echoing with demonic power. But the villagers stood firm, their faith unwavering. Nola stepped forward, her voice strong. "We stand together, Gorgon. Your darkness has no place here." With a final burst of energy, the purification ritual reached its peak. The dark barrier shattered, and Gorgon was thrown back by the force of the light. The demon within him howled in agony, retreating from the power of their combined faith. Breathing heavily, Apollo looked at Nola, gratitude and admiration in his eyes. "We did it, Nola." She smiled, tears of relief streaming down her face. "Yes, we did. Together." In the neighboring village of Zuka, Prince Gorgon brooded over his defeat. He summoned his most trusted warriors, men known for their loyalty and prowess in battle. Among them were Cato, a fierce fighter, and Jabari, a cunning strategist. They pledged to serve Gorgon, vowing to help him reclaim his honor and exact revenge on Umoja. "Gorgon," Cato said, his voice filled with determination, "we will stand by you. What is your command?" Gorgon's eyes burned with hatred. "We will strike at the heart of Umoja. But first, we must weaken their spirit. We must sow seeds of doubt and discord." Meanwhile, in Umoja, Apollo and Nola continued their efforts to heal the village and strengthen their defenses. One afternoon, as Nola helped prepare herbs in the village square, she noticed her father, King Osei, deep in conversation with a stranger. Curious, Nola approached them. The stranger was a messenger from Zuka, bearing a letter from Prince Gorgon. "Father, what is this about?" she asked, concern in her voice. King Osei sighed, handing her the letter. "It seems Gorgon wishes to make amends. He claims he wants to discuss peace and unity between our villages." Nola's brow furrowed. "Can he be trusted? After all he has done?" "We must consider all possibilities," King Osei replied. "I will meet with him and hear what he has to say. Perhaps this could be an opportunity to finally end the conflict." Nola felt uneasy, but she respected her father's wisdom. "Be careful, father. Gorgon is not to be underestimated." As King Osei prepared for the meeting, Gorgon and his warriors devised their plan. They would use this meeting as a chance to manipulate the king and sow discord within Umoja. Gorgon knew that by turning King Osei against Apollo, he could weaken the village's unity. On the day of the meeting, King Osei traveled to the neutral ground between the villages, accompanied by a few of his advisers. Gorgon awaited him with a seemingly contrite expression. "King Osei," Gorgon greeted, "thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I wish to apologize for my actions and seek a path to peace." King Osei studied him carefully. "Speak your mind, Gorgon. What is it you propose?" Gorgon spoke of unity and cooperation, of putting the past behind them for the sake of their people. He painted a picture of a brighter future, one where their villages thrived together. King Osei listened, cautiously optimistic but wary of Gorgon's true intentions. As they spoke, Gorgon subtly began his manipulation. "King Osei, I have heard rumors that this healer, Apollo, holds great influence over your daughter and your village. Can he truly be trusted? What do you know of his origins?" King Osei's face tightened. "Apollo has done much to aid us. He has my trust." Gorgon nodded, feigning concern. "I only wish to ensure that your trust is not misplaced. There are whispers that he harbors secrets, that his true intentions may not be as noble as they seem." The seed of doubt was planted. King Osei returned to Umoja with a troubled heart, his mind clouded with suspicion. Gorgon watched him go, a sinister smile playing on his lips. Soon, he thought, the rift will grow. Back in Umoja, Nola sensed her father's unease. "Father, what troubles you?" she asked. King Osei sighed, looking at his daughter with a mix of love and worry. Gorgon spoke of unity, but he also raised concerns about Apollo. "I do not know what to believe." Nola took his hand, her voice firm. "Apollo has only ever shown us kindness and healing. We must stand by him, father." King Osei nodded, but the doubt lingered. That night, as the village slept, Gorgon's warriors slipped into Umoja. They spread rumors and whispered lies, turning villagers against each other and questioning Apollo's intentions. Apollo, sensing the growing unrest, knew he had to act. He gathered the villagers in the square, his voice calm and reassuring. "I am here to help, not harm. Whatever doubts you have, let us face them together." Nola stood by his side, her presence a beacon of strength. "We must remain united," she said. "Together, we can overcome any darkness." The villagers listened, their faith in Apollo and Nola restoring their unity. But Gorgon's plan was far from over. He had seen Apollo's power and sought to understand it, to find his weakness. Through dark rituals and the demon's guidance, he discovered that Apollo's strength came from his divine nature, but also that he could be harmed by weapons forged in darkness. With this knowledge, Gorgon prepared for his final assault, knowing that to defeat Apollo and claim Nola, he would have to exploit this weakness. Prince Gorgon prepared for his final assault. He had armed his warriors with weapons forged in darkness, each one imbued with the power to harm even a divine being like Apollo. As night fell, Gorgon and his warriors moved silently towards Umoja. The village was eerily quiet, the air thick with anticipation. Gorgon's eyes glowed with unholy light as he approached the village gates, his heart set on claiming both Nola and the power he coveted. In Umoja, Apollo and Nola waited. Apollo's senses were heightened, attuned to the impending danger. "Stay close to me," he whispered to Nola. "We must face this together." Suddenly, the village erupted in chaos as Gorgon and his warriors attacked. The clash of weapons and the cries of battle filled the night air. The villagers fought bravely, but it was clear that this battle was beyond their usual strength. Gorgon sought out Apollo, determined to confront him directly. He found him in the center of the village, standing protectively in front of Nola. "Apollo!" Gorgon roared. "Face me, if you dare." Apollo stepped forward, his eyes calm and resolute. "Your hatred and jealousy have brought nothing but suffering, Gorgon. This ends now." The two clashed in a fierce battle, their powers colliding in a spectacle of light and darkness. Gorgon wielded his dark-forged weapons with brutal precision, while Apollo countered with his divine strength and healing light. The villagers watched in awe and fear, their fate hanging in the balance. Nola, unable to stand by and watch, joined the fray. She fought alongside her people, her courage inspiring those around her. Despite the chaos, she kept her eyes on Apollo, her heart aching with worry for the man she had come to love. As the battle raged on, Gorgon managed to land a devastating blow on Apollo. The dark-forged blade pierced Apollo's side, and he fell to his knees, weakened by the weapon's unholy power. Gorgon stood over him, a triumphant sneer on his face. "See, Apollo? Even a god can fall," Gorgon taunted. Nolla cried out, rushing to Apollo's side. "No, Apollo, you can't give up." Apollo looked up at her, his eyes filled with pain but also determination. "Nolla, have faith." Just as Gorgon raised his weapon for the final strike, a blinding light filled the village. The villagers shielded their eyes, and when the light faded, they saw a figure standing beside Apollo. It was an elder of the village, one who had been known for his deep faith and wisdom. The elder raised his hand, and a powerful force surged through him, striking Gorgon and knocking him back. The demonic entity within Gorgon screamed in agony as it was forced out, leaving Gorgon weakened and vulnerable. "No!" Gorgon cried, his voice filled with despair. "This can't be." The elder spoke, his voice echoing with divine power. "Your hatred and jealousy have no place here, Gorgon." With a final, desperate effort, Gorgon lunged at Apollo, but the elder intervened once more. The ground beneath Gorgon opened up, and he was swallowed by the earth, the demon's howls fading into the darkness. The battle was over. Apollo, though wounded, managed to stand with Nolla's support. The villagers gathered around, their faces filled with relief and gratitude. The elder approached Apollo, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have done well, Apollo. But your mission here is not yet complete. This is just the beginning."